Have you ever cheated in a role-playing game like Dungeons & Dragons? The answer may not be as clear as you think. It's certainly not as clear as I thought when I came across this poll from friend of the channel, D&D Shorts, who asked, "Is it cheating?" Question mark, exclamation point, thinking emoji. The GM forgets a mob of wolves have advantage on all attacks thanks to pack tactics, a special feature in the game. A player notices, but says nothing. Is it cheating? Wolf emoji. Now, when I saw that question, I thought to myself, this is like the trolley problem of RPGs, where choosing to act or not to act both cause some level of harm. If you say something, you interrupt the game. If you say nothing, you unfairly gain an edge. So yeah, that is cheating! Exclamation point. But holy crap, 80% of people said the opposite, and this is not a small group of people. There were 38,000 responses. What the heck? Do I actually have a hot take or unpopular opinion for once? So I want to expound on my reasoning here. I want to read some comments from the other side and hopefully hear from you as well to better understand how this could be not cheating for a player to not play by the rules. And for fun, we're going to look at one other classic is it cheating question, which surprisingly resulted in a 50-50 split. Because I'm Bob, this is where we learn how to have more fun playing role-playing games together, and this is a really good time to emphasize that I'm not trying to build a case for moral or ethical superiority here. Yeah, we're talking about truth, honesty, doing the right thing, but we're talking about it exclusively in the context of make-believe elf games, so please do not forget that by engaging in this thought experiment, we are all being a little silly. Alright, for some common ground, we should define cheating, but let's also acknowledge that ideally we would create our own definition because formal definitions are ever-changing and fickle things that lack our specific context. Just look at the second Oxford definition for cheat. Avoid something undesirable by luck or skill. They mean that as in cheating death, but literally avoiding something undesirable by luck, like a dice roll, or skill, like a character bonus, would mean every roll in D&D is cheating? So, I digress. Their primary definition of cheat is act dishonestly or unfairly in order to gain an advantage, especially in a game or examination. And that's pretty spot on for what I'm thinking. Like I implied before, I personally believe it is a bit dishonest and unfair for a player who knows that according to the rules the situation should be worse for them right now to withhold that knowledge. That's essentially what I'd call lying by omission. Now, I totally agree. Yes, it is primarily the Dungeon Master's responsibility to know and enforce the rules in an honest, fair, and consistent way. And yes, we don't want players stepping all over the DM's toes or interrupting a fun scene. But also, every player at the table should strive to play by the agreed upon rules. And at the end of the day, I think it's often helpful for a player to remind the DM of a forgotten rule, especially in a game like D&D 5e with over 1,000 pages of rules to remember. That's kind of the golden rule, right? Treat your DM as you wish to be treated. And that brings us right to what is somehow the most popular comment on this poll. Quote, "By that logic, a rogue who forgets to use sneak attack could say the DM's cheating for not reminding them." Yes. Exactly, yes, that is also cheating. Why would this not go both ways? It is just as dishonest and unfair for a DM who knows that according to the rules, the situation should be better for a player to withhold that knowledge. I might even say this counterexample is cheating to a greater degree, because like we just said, it is primarily the Game Master's duty to honestly, fairly, and consistently enforce the rules of the game. To me, that means this choice to say nothing is an abuse of the DM's power and like a subtle version of adversarial DMing. So I definitely call it cheating, and I don't understand why like 31,000 people apparently disagree. So before we get into the comments that I find much more reasonable and the 50-50 is it cheating poll, this is the perfect time to state your case in the comments below while I tell you about this video's awesome sponsor. Last Ark Tactics Analog is a love letter to JRPGs like Final Fantasy and Fire Emblem reimagined for pen and paper. Over 375 pages, 6 distinct classes and 15 races, over 300 gear items, 18 advanced classes, and near limitless character combinations through the game's talent tree progression and free-form multi-classing. The world of Last Ark includes JRPG mainstays like airships with a full combat system, forbidden powers like vampirism to unlock new talent trees, and more. Better yet, the game is done. 8 years of development, play-tested by a grassroots community, and inspiringly picked up by a small RPG studio who followed the game's development as fans and are now helping bring it to life in a beautiful book, just to be clear, with human-made art. The only catch? You can't back it until next week, but you can claim a free dice set for following the campaign now on GameFound. Just use my link below so they know who sent you. And you know what? A little nature break. This one's just for me. But I climbed like really high up a hill at this park that I've never been to before, hoping there would be a good spot or like a view up here, and you kind of can't see anything. So yeah, I just needed to say that. Okay, the next two most popular comments are basically tied. One says, it's up to the DM to remember those things, just like it's up to the players to remember when they have options for bonus actions or extra attacks or whatever their spell does. And yeah, I find this to be a more agreeable way of saying what the top comment sort of said. It is true that everyone should know their respective rules, but personally, I find the replies way more agreeable. Sure, but it doesn't hurt to help out the DM every now and then either. The DM is a player too, they also have a lot more on their plate to keep track of than just one character sheet, and at the end of the day, a good DM is on the side of the players. They want to help tell a great story. And boom, a campaign is a team effort. Thank you, Sasquatch. So maybe these two folks are in my 20% crew. Like, I'm still really curious where you will all end up. Is my audience somehow very different from D&D Shorts, or did I present this situation differently? We'll see. The other second place comment does start to convince me. Never try to rewind D&D combat. Yes, okay, this can be a huge time suck on a game session. It takes us all out of the moment, and it might spoil the fun of that moment. However, in the situation presented by D&D Shorts, it just says the player notices. So the default interpretation here is that the noticing occurs in the moment, not later on. And in that moment, I think it's totally fine to toss out a, hey DM, do these wolves have pack tactics? But if we're not in the moment, then I agree that if the player doesn't notice until after it gets to the next player's turn or something, they should not interject. Until it gets around to the GM's turn again, and even then, the GM should definitely not try to retcon anything from the last round. What's done is done. And as if these top comments were planned together, the next one acknowledges that acceptable kind of DM fiat, their ability to homebrew and bend the rules where it suits the game. My logic with it is that when I DM, sometimes I bend the rules to balance encounters. So until the wolves roll at advantage, I simply assume the DM intended them not to do that. But if they do, and I remember, I'll usually remind them. I also really appreciate this other comment who said these wolves come from the monster manual and aren't a custom pack of wolves. That resonates with me as someone who homebrews almost every monster they run. Still, I think it's fine to ask, hey DM, do these wolves have pack tactics? But let's focus on the idea of ignoring rules to balance encounters on the fly, because I think this is where things get highly specific from one GM to another, and even from one encounter to another. And for real, this is why you're gonna wanna share this video with your players, because knowing what they think is cheating could save you a lot of headache in the future. So yes, I have ignored rules and even retconned roles for the purpose of toning down an encounter that ended up being way more dangerous than I thought. However, it has been years since I've done anything like that behind the screen, because these days I tend to think that if a DM is secretly hand-waving stuff, that is a form of cheating. And just as importantly, I think it robs the players of an intense and/or collaborative moment in the game. Two quick examples: I've been running the new D&D starter set, and my most chaotic player, one of my oldest friends, is playing Balin of the Bush, a halfling wizard with like 6 hit points. So in the party's first real battle, he was knocked out not once, not twice, but thrice, riddled with crossbow bolts from one bandit as the beefier characters fought the other bandits in melee. But each time Balin of the Bush went down, another player was able to spend their action or bonus action or something to bring him right back up. The fighter by smashing a potion over his unconscious halfling body, and the cleric by using creepy descriptions of their healing spells in such a way that the bandits cried necromancy and were horrified throughout the battle, with the last one fleeing to fight another day. Even at level 1, these 5e characters had multiple safeguards to deploy in fun ways, and if I had secretly manipulated the encounter, hoping to protect them from an outcome that I alone decided was undesirable, I would have made that battle a lot less exciting and fun for our whole group. But here's an even better example because it has a legitimate retcon. That same halfling decided to run through a tunnel that he knew belonged to murderous goblins, and he did it alone. Only one other PC was around, and they were busy with another aspect of this encounter. So I asked for Balin's passive perception score, and unfortunately, he did not see it coming when a hidden goblin leapt down from a vertical tunnel, landed its attack roll, stabbed him up with some high damage, and dropped him to 0 hit points, essentially dooming this lone player character before we even got to death saves. I don't know if you can hear that. I think it's a train. I think that is a train. So the way this situation unfolded, a player character was basically gonna die without even getting to make a roll to avoid this situation. And above table, we were all like, okay, yeah, he was super reckless, but it doesn't seem fun for Balin to go out like this alone in the dark. So the player asked if he could have preemptively stored one of his healing good berries in his cheek as like the opposite of a spy movie cyanide pill. And thus, in a way that can't be cheating because it wasn't dishonest or unfair, everyone at the table agreed this was a better outcome for our low-stakes starter set mini-campaign. And with 1 hit point, the woozy wizard was taken prisoner by the goblin. And it only took us like 20 seconds to make that fun decision together as a group. As our dear Sasquatch put it, a campaign is a team effort. While the GM has the final say on rules and how they're enforced, the whole group is responsible for upholding those agreed upon rules and making the game fun. At least that sounds good until we start pushing the boundaries of the DM's final say. So this other poll could probably have its own video, but let's take a crack at it. Is it cheating? Episode 2. It's a boss encounter, and 3 players crit turn 1. Reducing the boss to 0 HP before its turn. The GM decides privately ignore all damage dealt thus far in the hope of making the fight more fun and cinematic. Is it cheating? Classic situation, and you already know, about 50-50 yes-no from 36,000 people, presumably because this question is prodding at the very blurry line between GM prep and GM rulings. I think we all agree that while preparing for a game session, the Dungeon Master is completely free to change up a monster's statistics or features and to create entirely original monsters and other dangers that hopefully come together in an exciting encounter that pushes the players to make interesting decisions. Furthermore, we should all agree that the DM has the final say on rulings during the game. That's their job as the referee. But I think the disagreement comes from whether or not changing a monster during the session qualifies as a ruling. You saw my vote. I called this cheating too, because to me, it's another secret decision. And I feel like once the game begins, any retcons with serious consequences should be accepted by the whole group, like in my Wizard's Goodberry example. And to me, a boss battle is another serious situation, and if it kicks off with 3 critical hits, that is not something I would ever just hand wave as a dungeon master. However, if the players want to have a longer battle, something needs to be done, and the top comment here nearly solves it for me. 3 crits has to mean something. Make it a two-stage fight. Have the creature visually evolve in some way, and make it clear that they crit through its first stage before it even got a turn off. This lets them have the feeling of success while still having the fight. Yeah, not only are boss battle stages a DM best practice that we should all be using more, but the key here once again is communication. And even I wouldn't want to pause the game in the middle of a boss battle to confer with all my players whether or not it would be more fun for the boss to have more hit points. That's like the last fragment of the fourth wall still present in my games. So if that's true for you as well, we need to know ahead of time, either from previous experience with our players or from a discussion during a session 0, whether or not they want a particular story, like a climactic long boss battle, or they want the dice to tell the story. Personally, I favor the dice because they are undeniably fair. And it's a lot less stressful as the DM, as in, what if your secret decision to give the boss more HP and arbitrarily extend the battle results in a battle that's way more dangerous than you thought? Now you've cornered yourself into, once again, secretly, frantically manipulating the encounter just to keep the party alive. It's like a classic sitcom or movie situation where a character has some white lie that then they have to cover up with more lies. And back to the beginning, I'm not making this about like, you're a liar if you do this in D&D. You can't control everything. Sometimes a player character is gonna end up sacrificing something important, or even dying, just because the DM secretly decided this fight should have been longer. So make sure you know what your players want. But if you don't, I say just trust the dice, or try a compromise. Maybe after those 3 critical hits, you want to keep the fight going just a little bit longer so everyone gets a turn. So you describe the boss monster's fatal wounds and say that it's not gonna survive this round, but it is gonna get 1 turn of attacks. That way every player, DM included, gets 1 turn to go all out. So if you like any of these ideas, be sure to give the video a thumbs up. Remember to share it with your group so you can figure out whether or not they think this is cheating, and give a round of applause for the supporters on Patreon and YouTube memberships who make it all happen. Thank you, and keep building.